there, my name is Megan and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review for Small Favors by Erin A. But before we go ahead and get on into the review, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new bookish content. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday, and sometimes other days throughout the week. Also, don't forget to check down in the description box below for links to all of my social media, my Buddy Read Discord, and my Patreon, where you can be entered into winning book giveaways from me. Small Favors is a standalone young adult fantasy horror, and it's by the same author who wrote House of Salt and Sorrows, which I read a couple of years ago and absolutely loved. And the reason that I love Erin A. Craig's books is because they are incredibly atmospheric. They have fantastical elements, but they incorporate like elements of creepiness and horror, which I just think is an awesome combination, and really not a lot that you see in young adult, in my personal opinion. I also feel like this book could be read across all age ranges. It is definitely mature enough for adults. The themes are fairly complex, and it can also be simply enough read for a younger audience. The way that I'm going to structure this review is I'm going to talk about the plot, the characters, the things that I liked and the things that I didn't like, and then there are a couple of spoilery points that I want to discuss, and then I'm going to give the book an overall rating. If you're interested in just skipping to any one of those sections, I'll go ahead and put timestamps down below. In Small Favors, we follow a sleepy, secluded town called Amity Falls, and it is literally in the middle of this forest. It was founded by these families centuries ago, and the people that govern this small town are actually descendants of these original founders. And the original founders talked about these monsters that lurked in this forest, but no one has seen any for the longest time, so it's kind of like grown into this myth. And then we get a resurgence of these monsters in this book. And a lot of people are speculating if it's actually what the original founders talked about, or if it's something new, or it's actually like bears and wolves. So this book starts off with a supply run that is being sent from Amity Falls to the big city beyond the forest, because like I said, this is a secluded area and they do need supplies from the outside world. So they're sending these supply runs, and the supply runs keep getting attacked and the people are getting killed. So the elders decide that no more supply runs. They are going to just hunker down for the winter on the minimum supplies that they have. So because this is such a small little community, the people have to rely on one another in order to survive. So it's a very close-knit community. And the time period I would attribute to something like the 1800s, because there's no electricity, there's no cars or anything like that, but there are firearms and everything has to be done by hand. And our main character that we follow, her name is Ellery Downing, and she is a descendant of one of the original founders. And her father cultivates honey. He has a ton of beehives, and that's what he does. And Ellery has a twin brother named Sam and then two younger sisters. Something happens, unfortunately, towards the beginning of the book. There's an emergency, and the two parents, the mom and dad of Ellery, have to get whisked away out of Amity Falls to the big city for medical treatment, leaving Ellery and her brother Sam to oversee the farm, oversee the beehives, as well as the two younger sisters. And mind you, they are getting ready for winter when everything is going to be shut down, and they are going to have to survive on the little bit of food that they were able to put away and can for the winter. Now, a bunch of strange things have started happening in this small town just outside of like the attacks from the supply runs. People have said there have been sighting of strange monster-like things. Also, some animals are being birthed with birth defects. And then there has been some accusations of vandalism, stealing. There's a lot of contention that starts to erupt between the people of the small community, things that have never happened before. So it's almost like this evil is permeating the small town and infecting these people, and all they want to do is fight and hurt one another. And as the book progresses, the acts of aggression start getting worse and worse and worse, and the attitudes of the people start getting more and more and more evil. So where does Ellery fit into all of this? So she is just trying to survive and provide for her two younger sisters. And she actually ends up meeting someone in the woods who is a trapper. So she meets a trapper named Whitaker, and he is like the love interest in this book, but he also adds an air of mystery because he's an outsider and he knows things, you know, that he probably shouldn't. And there's just some weirdness going on with him. But Ellery is highly attracted to him, and there is like a romance between the two of them. And then we have two more characters from the outside that end up coming into this book, and I really don't want to tell you who or what because I feel like it would be a huge spoiler, and there's a lot of mystery around them as well. So in addition to caring for her sisters, Ellery has to kind of figure out what is going on with the people of her town, why they are acting so strange, why all this evil is being committed. And she also starts to see the monsters from the forest. And they're not so much monsters, but just strange things that are coming out of the forest that she knows are not right. And she has to kind of put all the pieces together to figure out what exactly is going on and how she is going to survive living in Amity Falls and protect her family with her parents gone, and exactly what she's going to do if things keep going how they are going. So I really am going to mostly talk about Ellery as a character. So I really liked Ellery because I felt like she was an extremely strong, level-headed character. So her parents, had to leave, and she is literally stuck raising her two siblings. One is 16 and one is 8, and caring for the farm, caring for the beehives. And then she does have a twin brother, Sam, but Sam is just useless. Like, he's horrible. He's a horrible character. Now I'm going to go on to the things that I liked about this book. So the first one is the setting. So I absolutely love a secluded setting because it just adds that element of creepiness. I say this all the time because if someone needed help, there's no one around to help them. And then we have the dark forest trope, and I really loved how the forest was like a living, breathing thing on its own, and the people of Amity Falls set like bells in the trees to alert them of anything coming out of the forest. And they, on the border of the town, they had these big bonfire type things that they would light to keep back evil. And it just had like this dark, creepy feeling to the forest. I thought it was great. The mystery in this book was excellent because, like I said, this small community is slowly being influenced by some sort of evil, and obviously it's some fantastical element because there's beasts in the forest, and then Ellery and a couple of other people in the town start to see this like strange woman with these silver eyes and claw-like fingers, and you have to ask yourself what exactly is causing the people to become evil. And there was a lot of mystery around that, especially when we get introduced to the two other strangers that come into town who like carry more information about what's actually going on. So the mystery of this book I really liked, and that's honestly what kept me reading because I wanted to know what the heck was causing this and why the people were acting this way. Not only did Erin A. Craig do a great job with the character of Ellery, with the creepy setting, the creepy fantastical elements, but this book is highly emotional. So a lot of stuff happens in this book that it's just there's a whole range of emotions. So you have Ellery, who literally is by herself, and her parents are gone. She doesn't know if she's ever going to see them again, so she's experiencing loss. And then she has a big issue with her twin brother, who, like I said, is a horrible character. And once again, that relationship causes her extreme grief and extreme loss. She doesn't know if she's going to be able to fix the problems with the beehives. So once again, she has to deal with like potential loss. And there's just a lot of emotions that deal with grief and loss in this book that I really wouldn't have expected in like a YA fantasy horror. And then we have like the emotions of new love that Ellery is experiencing with Whitaker. So there's a lot of like sour and sweet elements to this book that I really wasn't expecting. We also have a great sisterly relationship. Ellery and her two younger sisters are really close. They love each other. They support each other. They work together to get through the winter. Ellery has to become like a mother-like figure to them, which is something that she's not 100% prepared for. So, there's just so many emotions that go into this book. As for the dislikes of this book, there really wasn't that many. I think my main dislike would have to be it was fairly repetitive. So yes, there is this mystery going on in this town where something is infecting these people essentially to act in an evil manner. And it just, as the book went on, that was the only thing that they were dealing with. So like I said, the act started out small, like vandalism, and then they went all the way up to like way more evil works like murder. And that was essentially all of the conflict in the book. So a lot of the scenes in this book were the townspeople fighting with one another. So it was extremely repetitive. And I feel like a lot of that could have been taken out because as the reader, I get that something's infecting this town with evil. You don't need to give me 100 examples of how these townspeople are turning against one another. And the other thing was the ending. So I still haven't decided if I liked the ending. And I wish the ending had been different. I wish that there had been more redemption in the ending and it could have been a happier ending. So Erin A. Craig writes fantasy horror. You can't really expect it to be like a fairy tale like ending. This definitely was not. And I just probably would have rated the book higher if it had had a different ending. It wasn't horrible horrible. It just didn't give me like the happy feels, which I wanted. So the ending, I think, could be a hit or miss for some people, and I am going to talk more about it in the spoilery section, which I'm going into now. So if you guys don't want to hear spoilers, go ahead and just skip over to the rating. So the ending, basically, the evil was allowed to take the town, and the townspeople literally turned against one another and burned the place to the ground and killed one another. And Ellery escapes with her two sisters, with the two newcomers, Ezra and Thomas, who were sent to Amity Falls to help study this evil, not even help fight it, just help like study it, as well as Rebecca and her daughter, which is Ellery's niece. Sam impregnated their neighbor and she had the baby. So they all leave, as well as Whitaker. So they all get out of the town, but the town basically collapses on itself and everyone dies and burns. So the evil won. The evil did not take like Ellery and the people that she cares about, but the evil won. So I was a little bit disappointed in that. I would have liked to see the townspeople come to their senses, maybe have some sort of like redemption and just some way to fight this evil. So I just wasn't a huge fan of the ending. Like, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. I loved that Ellery got out, but just, you know, this small sleepy town should have been able to fight back, and they weren't able to. And then one other thing I wanted to touch on. So one of the reasons that I like this book so much is that I thought that the author did an excellent job, I guess, symbolizing evil. And what I mean is there's a lot of religious undertones in this book, which was actually fairly well done, like Christian undertones. And a lot of times I feel like that's done incorrectly from people who don't really know the religion or study the religion or know it intimately. And as someone who has actively studied Christianity her whole life, you know, it's hard for me to read when someone doesn't know what they're talking about because they haven't taken the time to study the religion. So I felt like Erin A. Craig did a really good job with this. And one of the things that I really liked that she did is that there was this scene where there's this preacher, because I feel like a lot of people, you know, one of the antagonists has to be this like crazy zealot Christian preacher. Like, yeah, those people exist, but like they're not the norm. And the preacher in this small town was like this, and he ended up, you know, forcing the people of this town to come and confess their sins. And I'm like, first off, no Protestant church I've ever been to has had a confession like that. Like, you don't just confess in front of everybody. However, there was this scene with this older lady, and she even tells him, look, I confess my sins to God, and he's forgiven me, and that's all I need. And I was like, yes, thank you, Erin A. Craig, you got it right. Like, the fact that this preacher was wanting these people to like confess in front of the entire, I guess, congregation, like that just doesn't happen. You confess what you did wrong to God, you confess what you did wrong to the person you wronged, if you wronged someone, and you ask forgiveness and you're forgiven and you move on. Don't do it again. So I just felt like she really responded well to that zealot preacher with that old lady saying that, because that's the truth of it. So she did a good job there. And the other thing I really liked was the Watchers. So these are the evil beings that are causing all this evil in a small town and literally getting into the hearts and minds of these townspeople and making them do all this bad stuff. So in my mind, I was like, okay, Erin A. Craig is manifesting sin. So in my personal opinion, all of us are capable of good and evil. We're human. And the preacher even says at one point, look, there's no monsters in the forest. This is all your own evil hearts that are doing this stuff. And I entirely agreed with him. Like, nothing can force you to do evil. Like, you make the decision to do what you do. And I really felt like she was using the Watchers or the monsters as like a symbol for our own internal evil. And yes, in this case, she made it like an outside force that the people had to fight. But that kind of ties into the ending, because in the ending, the people weren't able to overcome the evil and they ended up destroying themselves. So I just, in my mind, I was like, okay, so she is using the Watchers to symbolize our own corrupt hearts, and how if we're not able to govern it and take control of it and do what's right, we'll end up self-destructing. I got a lot out of it. I don't know if she intended for the reader to see it that way, but that's how I personally saw it, and I thought it was very well done. All right, you guys, that is it for my review of Small Favors by Erin A. Craig. All in all, I really enjoyed this book, and I think she is becoming an auto-buy author for me, and I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars. Let me know in the comments if you've read this book and what you thought of it, and I will see y'all in another video soon. Goodbye!